Hello, 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 everyone. Welcome to the Way Wednesdays virtual Midrash. Yeah, we're going to do a study through the weekly Torah portions, and you're with the Way congregation. So glad you can be here. My name is Dr. Douglas Hamp. It is my pleasure to take you with me through the Torah portions. Tonight we are in VaYishlach, and he sent, and we are going to see what Jacob, the deceiver, did to try to save his own skin. All right, so let's get started. Now, if you remember last week, we talked about if you deceive, you will be deceived, right? And this is just one of these laws in Scripture. It's called the law of sowing and reaping. What a man sows, that he'll also reap. What a man sows, that he'll also reap. Okay, so that is a law, right? And this is something that you can count on, whether you like it or not. So, whatever you are sowing, that you're going to reap in kind. All right. So, we know that Jacob went out on his mother's suggestion, but he still did it. He deceived his father. And then, of course, he went and was hanging out with Laban. And instead of getting the wife that he wanted, he got this other wife. Right. And that caused all kinds of complications. And then finally, after 20 years, they fled because he didn't think he'd get a fair shake from his father-in-law. But hey, sorry, Jacob, what comes around goes around. All right, that's the unfortunate truth of that. All right, so let's get into tonight, VaYishlach. That is what we're looking at. I just want to double check that I got everything right. Okay, let's get going. All right. Okay, Verse 3, VaYishlach, and then Jacob sent messengers before him to Esau, his brother, in the land of Seir, the country of Edom. And he commanded them, saying, Speak thus to my lord Esau. You see a little difference here? All right, now, the word Lord here is Adoni. Okay, that is basically the word sir, okay, or Mr., master, right? That's the modern equivalent of Adoni. And if you go to modern Israel today, right, I guess there's only one Israel. If you go to Israel today, you will encounter them saying Adoni. Okay, so that is just saying my Lord, my Sir, something like that. Okay, and but what a difference in tenor, right? So we see here that Jacob is being humbled, and it's going to take quite a process for him to really get to the place where he is repentant, right? But he's been on this journey, and he's now coming back, and he's like, oh no, there's my brother who wanted to kill me, 20 years ago. Maybe he's still mad at me. And so he's going to do whatever he can to try to appease his brother. And you know what? That's a good idea. If you can resolve things with somebody, if you can fix it in some way. Now, sometimes there are situations that are so far gone, there probably is no replacement. I say probably because, with God, all things are possible. So I don't want to limit God by any stretch of the imagination. But if somebody's dead, let's say that, it's going to be difficult in this life to try to resolve that with this person. All right. But if there's any way possible, whatever depends on you, try to make peace with those around you. It's worth it. It pays big dividends when you do that. So here, Jacob is getting that. The deceiver is now thinking, okay, how can I make things better with my bro? All right. Thus says your servant Jacob, your servant, right? But what did he take, right? He got the blessing that he was going to be the one that the other brother would serve. But now Jacob is humbling himself. And it's never wrong to humble yourself, right? Micah 6:8, he has shown you, a man, what is good, what the Lord requires of you, to do justly, love mercy, and walk humbly with our God, right? And by walking humbly with our God means that we also humble ourselves with our fellow man. We really have nothing to boast about. We might think so, me compared to the other guy, I might have a couple things that I can do a little bit better, but he might have quite a few things that he does better than me. And both of us compared to God, it's nothing, right? So there's very little to boast in. And I'll tell you, if you go through your life always comparing yourself to other people, you're going to be so miserable. How do I know? I did it for too long, right? Comparing myself to this person and to that person and always feeling insecure because, oh no, he can do something a little bit better than I can, or I thought I was good at something, but no, he's actually better. Man, don't do it. Don't compare yourself with others. it leads to heartache and lots of ugly stuff. All right. So, yeah, don't do that. All right. So, here's what he says: I have dwelt with Laban and stayed there until now. I have oxen, donkeys, flocks, and male and female servants, and I have sent to tell my Lord that I may find favor in your sight. Then the messengers returned to Jacob, saying, we came to your brother Esau, and he is also coming to meet you with 400 men, and 400 men are with him. Uh-oh. This is that scary moment, the pit in your stomach, right? You're like, oh no, right? He's coming with 400 men. What are you going to do with 400 men? You're probably looking for a war, right? That's what you do with 400 men. You're not just going and visiting the countryside, right? When you have 400 men behind you, you're probably serious. And Jacob's probably thinking, oh no, he's still mad at me. So Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed. Okay, look, if I were in that situation, yeah, I get it, because you're like, oh no, not just me, but all these people with me. He's going to do a complete genocide of us. It's over. This is it. This is when your faith is tested. Whew, right now, being the armchair theologian, I can tell you what he should have done. All right. He should have been like, you know what? God said that through me, he's going to bless. And so I can just relax because God said that he'd bring me back and everything's going to be cool and kosher. But that's not how most of us act in times of stress. We're like, oh no. Right. But you see that God uses those times of incredible stress to strengthen us, to teach us, to lead us in ways that we hadn't thought of, right? And that's super powerful. So Jacob was greatly afraid and distressed, and he divided the people that were with him and the flocks and herds and camels into two companies. And he said, if Esau comes to the one company and attacks it, then the other company which is left will escape. Then Jacob said, oh, God of my father Abraham. Oh, wait a second. Remember when he was coming out of the land of Canaan, going to Haran, he says, okay, if you do all these things, then you can be my God. But now he's in great distress. And so now he's definitely calling upon the Lord. Now, I'm not saying he was godless, because he wasn't. He was very much a believer in the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? But we really now see him turning to God in a very special way, because now God is going to become real for him, right? Before, he could sort of get by on his own strengths. And yeah, God was blessing him and he knew that. But now, when everything could be taken away, that is when your faith is tested. I hate those moments, quite frankly. But I'm really learning and trying to learn to say, you know what? Every obstacle is merely a stepping stone to something greater, right? That is what the Lord wants to do. And so if I look at these challenges as friends instead of foes, that God is going to use everything for good to those who love him and are called according to his purpose. I love him and I'm called according to his purpose. So what am I worried about? Right? Isn't that what Jesus said? Why do you worry? Right? You can't add one cubit to your stature. You can't change the color of your hair, but why worry? And that is an age-old question that God has been asking mankind since the very beginning, pretty much. Why are you worried? Well, we worry because of what? Fear. And that's what we saw, that he was greatly afraid and distressed, right? Because if you look at the circumstance says, you are dead, dude. You are so dead. But if you look to God, you're like, no, I'm not. I'm not dead. I don't know how this is going to turn out, but I know that God is with me and that he cares about me. Look, Jacob was a regular guy like the rest of us. We might think, oh, he was somebody so incredibly special. I could never be like him. You know what? He wasn't that great. He had major hangups, as we've been looking and studying in this parasha. He has some major faults. Okay. So trust me, you're pretty much like Jacob. I'm pretty much like Jacob. And we have the same kinds of fears, the same struggles, the same ambitions, the same lusts, and the same, different things that guys back then struggled with. Same thing guys today struggle with, right? And women as well, etc. So he's now thinking, okay, I've got a plan. He's still scheming, and it's going to take an encounter with God to turn him around, right? That's the only way he can do this. But from his point of view right now, in this moment, he's thinking, oh man, I am so dead. So he's taking defensive measures. He's dividing his camp in two. Okay, here's what we're going to do, guys. I got a battle plan. But as we go on in scripture, we're going to see that it says, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. Right? I was just reading in 2 Chronicles chapter 20 about Jehoshaphat, when there are some armies that are coming against him to attack him. And one of the prophets rises up and says, guys, stand still and see the salvation of the Lord. That's the same thing that Moses said to the children of Israel at the Red Sea. Stand still and see the salvation of the Lord, because the Lord will fight for you. Isn't that cool? The Lord will fight for you. Why will he fight for you? Because he loves you. Well, is it because I deserve it? No. Did Jacob deserve it? No, he didn't. He didn't deserve it. But you know what? God loved him. And that's why God was willing to fight for him. But so then our part is to kind of let go and let God, right? But that's where, I don't know, Lord, if I can really trust you, maybe I should do this myself, because I don't know if you're going to come through, right? That is exactly where Jacob is. I don't know if God's going to come through. But now, of course, he's turning to the Lord to say, hey, I got a little reminder here. Then Jacob said, oh, God of my father Abraham and God of my father Isaac, the Lord who said to me, return to your country and to your family, and I will deal well with you. Did I mishear you, Lord? Did you not say that? Because now it's looking like certain death. I am not worthy of the least of all the mercies and of all the truth which you've shown your servant. For I crossed over this Jordan with my staff, and now I have become two companies. Deliver me, I pray, from the hand of my brother and from the hand of Esau, for I fear him, lest he come and attack me and the mother with the children. For you said, I will surely treat you well and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude. Right. Now, again, good job, Jacob, for remembering the past. Now, again, I don't think I would have done any better. So I am not judging Jacob, but I just want you to see something so that we can learn from this. If he had started with, God, you said that I will treat you well and make your descendants as the sand of the sea, which cannot be numbered for multitude, well, then I know that it's going to be okay, right? He could have avoided a lot of the stress if he had remembered all of the promises that God had told him and then stood on those promises. Having done all to stand therefore, right? That's the hard part, right? We've done all this stuff to stand, but then when the moment comes to stand, we run away because we're too afraid to stand. But that is where we're tested. And Jacob is being tested. If you are walking in Messiah, you will be tested. I hate to break it to you because we'd all like to skip that. Man, I would like to skip it. Do you think I enjoy testing? No, I really don't. But I look back and I say, you know what? The Lord was faithful there. He was faithful there. He was faithful over there. So why am I worried? And I begin to understand this is rather irrational, what I'm doing, of just being afraid about things, when God did say he'd be with me. And so now I simply need to trust him in the midst of this situation. And that is where my resolve, my poise is tested, is in those moments. So he lodged there that same night and took what came to his hand as a present for Esau his brother, 200 female goats and 20 male goats, 200 ewes and 20 rams, 30 milk camels with their colts, 40 cows and 10 bulls, 20 female donkeys and 10 foals. Then he delivered them to the hand of his servants. Each drove by itself and said to his servants, pass over before me and put some distance between successive droves. And he commanded the first one, saying, when Esau, my brother, meets you and asks you, saying, to whom do you belong and where are you going? Whose are these in front of you? Then you shall say to him, they are your servant Jacob's. It is a present sent to my lord Esau. And behold, he also is behind us. So he commanded the second, the third, and all who followed the droves. There's how many droves we have? A lot, right? A lot. He is really trying to impress him and say, man, don't kill me, brother. In this manner, you shall speak to Esau when you find him And also say, behold, your servant Jacob is behind you. For he said, I will appease him with the present that goes before me. And afterward, I will see his face. Perhaps he will accept me. Whose strength is he leaning on right now? He's definitely leaning on his own strength. Now, was it wrong to send these? I don't know. Maybe, maybe not. It's hard to say, right? I wasn't there. But he really is looking to his own resources. He's trying to buy out his brother. He's definitely trying to bribe him, okay? Instead of standing on the promises that God said that he'll be with him, he'll protect him, he's doing it in his own strength. And that's going to cause him to have quite a sleepless night. So the present went over before him, but he himself lodged that night in the camp. And he arose that night and took his 2 wives, his 2 female servants, and his 11 sons, and crossed over the ford of Jabbok. He took them, sent them over the brook, and sent over what he had. He's still stressed out. He's thinking, oh man, I don't know. I don't think that's going to be enough. He's still going to kill me, right? He's going to take all that stuff and just kill me, right? He's still scared. He's running. He's running. Then Jacob was left alone, and a man wrestled with him until the breaking of day. All right, so this is what we call a Christophany or a theophany, right? So this is an appearance of Christ in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible. Now, what we're going to take a look at this, but I would argue, based on the language, that this is, in fact, a pre-incarnate manifestation of Yeshua, right? This is Jesus here appearing in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, and it's God. Okay. Well, how do I know it's God? Because it says it's God. Okay. So let's take a look at this. All right. So he wrestled with a man. All right. And the word there is ish. So that does mean man. Now, when he saw that he did not prevail against him, he touched the socket of his hip, and the socket of Jacob's hip was out of joint as he wrestled with him. And he said, let me go, for the day breaks. But he said, I will not let you go unless you bless me. So he said to him, what is your name? He said, Jacob. What is your name? Deceiver. Right? What's your name? Heel catcher, deceiver. Well, that's a problem, right? If you're known as the deceiver, that's actually your name, or heel catcher, whatever it may be. You got to change that. And he said, your name shall no longer be called Yaakov, no longer heel catcher, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed. All right, so he wrestled with God. Now, some people argue this means ruled by God, and I could see that based on the root here, Yisra, right? So the word Tsar, which is a prince, a ruler, but it really seems to be in the context that this is probably somebody who really is wrestling with God. Either way, it doesn't change it dramatically, but his name is changed. That's the main point here. He wrestled with God, right? Because so this is this man. You have struggled with God and with men and have prevailed, right? And then Jacob asked, saying, tell me your name, I pray. So, oh, pretty please, can you tell me now? Right? Jacob knows who's stronger at this dude, that God, right? And he's saying, can you tell me your name? I'd like to know. Why is it that you ask about my name? And he blessed him there. So God doesn't tell him what his name is, but Jacob can deduce who he's wrestling with. So Jacob called the name of the place Peniel. Peniel, right? So Pani or Panim, this is your Panim, your face. Now, Panim in Hebrew is actually plural. And I remember when I was first learning this, and I'm like, that's so strange. Why would it be plural? Why would it be faces instead of face? I only have one face. But then I realized, actually, there's a lot of wisdom in that. Because how many faces do I have? Well, I have my happy face. I've got my sad face. I've got my angry face. Right? I've got lots of faces on this face of mine. Right? And we all do. So it's just a matter of looking at it differently. Right? So then panim becomes pani, paniel. It's the face or faces of God. Right? So this is what he's calling this place, Peniel. Because why? For I have seen God face to face, panim el panim, vatinatzel nafshi, and my life is preserved. So he's saying, Jacob is saying, I saw God face to face. The conclusion I would get from that is that he saw God face to face. That's interesting. Now, that is a problem for some of our Jewish colleagues who think that it's impossible, and they say, "Oh, there's no way that God could become a man and dwell among us." Well, he did it here. Now it even says that he was a ish, he was a man, right? Now again, I don't think that he was a natural born, right? Obviously, but he came in the form of a man. It's just that when Jesus came, he decided to come in the form of a man born of a woman. That's the difference, right? So God has already come in the form of a man, but not born of a woman. That's what's so distinct about the incarnation of Jesus, right? But he already did come in the form of a man. Right there, there's the word, a man. He wrestled with a man. And he says, and my life is preserved. So, this is pretty wild that you can do this and not die, right? So obviously something very special just happened. Just as he crossed over Penuel, the sun rose on him and he limped on his hip. Therefore, to this day, the children of Israel do not eat the muscle that shrank, which is in the hip socket, because he touched the socket of Jacob's hip and the muscle that shrank. So that right there is the note of the editor. Okay, now I believe that editor to be Moses. Other people have different opinions about that, but I would say that when Moses was taking all of these different accounts from these various men, he put them together and then he added these little comments at the end. All right, so that would be my take on that. All right, Genesis 33. Now Jacob lifted his eyes and looked, and there Esau was coming, and with him were 400 men. Here we go. So he divided the children among Leah, Rachel, and the two maidservants. And he put the maidservants and their children in front, Leah and her children behind, and Rachel and Joseph last. Gosh, I wonder who he loves the most here, right? So if he's going to kill them, maybe Rachel and Joseph will have a chance to run for it, right? The maidservants and their kids, well, they can be the first to be slaughtered. I don't know. Then he crossed over before them and bowed himself to the ground 7 times until he came near his brother. But Esau ran to meet him and embraced him and fell on his neck and kissed him, and they wept. And he lifted his eyes and saw the women and the children and said, "Who are these with you?" So he said, "The children whom God has graciously given your servant." Again, Jacob has learned. He's been humbled and he's learning. I went out as a deceiver. Now I'm the one who's wrestling with God. And, I'm not here to lord it over my brother. When you really become a true and righteous leader, you realize that it's not about lording it over other people. It's about being a servant. Now, it doesn't mean that, you always have to do all the dishes or you always have to do all the vacuuming if you're the leader, right? There's always a time for delegation, right? Because one leader, a human leader, cannot do every job out there, right? So that's not about, get the pastor's got to do everything, right? That's just not going to work, right? And that's not healthy. But it's not about, whoever that leader is, whether it's a pastor or a president or a king or whoever. It's about being a servant, about serving the needs of others within, the time frame that you have and with the gifts that you have, right? Then you want to serve others in that. And of course, they will serve you as well. But that's how this whole thing works. If we will serve each other, then none of us really will be a lord over the other, even though there could be leaders, right? There can be rulers. There's nothing wrong with that per se, but it's a matter of are we serving each other? Jacob is learning this important lesson. It's only taken him 20 years, but he's getting it. All right, he's definitely getting it. Then the maidservants came near, they and their children, and bowed down. And Leah also came near with her children, and they bowed down. Afterward, Joseph and Rachel came near, and they bowed down. Then Esau said, "What do you mean by all this company which I met?" And he said, "These are to find favor in the sight of my Lord." But Esau said, "I have enough, my brother. Keep what you have for yourself." And Jacob said, "No, please. If I have now found favor in your sight, then receive my present from my hand, inasmuch as I've seen your face, as though I had seen the face of God, and you were pleased with me." Now, he's like, I did see the face of God, okay? And that was quite the experience, right? So this wrestling with God is something that well, Jacob's been wrestling with God, right? He does this in a particular moment, in a night, he wrestles with him. But that is simply something that is just evident in his life. I can't think of the right word there, but it's very much evident in his life that he has been wrestling with God, right? Really from the time that his mother said, hey, you should go deceive your father. He was wrestling with God. Even before that, when he took his brother's birthright, he was wrestling with God because he was usurping these things, even though it was prophesied that they would come to him. But instead of waiting for the hand of God to work, he took it upon himself to acquire these things, and he paid dearly for it. Now, I think about King David. What a difference, right? Before he became king and he was being hunted by Saul, he had a number of times where he could have killed Saul. And did Samuel not anoint David? Yes, he did. But he also anointed Saul. And so David said, I will not lay my hand on God's anointed, right? And so David patiently, and this is where we get so many of these beautiful Psalms of his struggling and all this different stuff. He patiently waited for God to do the work and for God to remove Saul in God's time. And then it was so much better. The trouble is we often get ahead of God and we try to force these things. Well, I know this is supposed to happen, right? Jacob's thinking, I know that I'm supposed to be, this important person. And so therefore I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. But he gets ahead of God. You have to allow God time to do things. Man, I'm just preaching to myself again, right? Because, there's things that I'm like, Lord, let's do it today, maybe tomorrow, but let's not wait any longer than that. God's like, I've got it figured out. Wait on me, and I will bring it to pass in my perfect timing. And that's the struggle, right? Because we all want it right now, especially in our modern culture with, microwaves and cell phones and all these things. We want it instantaneously. We just can't even imagine. Remember when you had to go to a video store and rent a VHS thing? Remember those things? And then you had to rewind them at the end. And oh my goodness, right? And it took forever. Now we just like, okay, I want instant downloading. Even not so long ago, we had to wait for things to buffer. Remember that? I don't know if you guys remember, but this wasn't that long ago, right? You could get things online, but it took them a while to download. But now we have, high speed broadband, all this stuff, and it's instant, and we like that. But that's not how it works with God, because his timing is perfect. I'm telling you, he brings it about in the perfect time. If certain things would happen in our lives at the wrong time, it would not be the right way. It just wouldn't be good, right? I need this thing, but I need it on Wednesday. I don't need it on Monday, right? And so that is how God works. He arranges things in such amazing and incredible ways if we will wait upon him. All right, so please take my blessing that is brought to you, because God has dealt graciously with me and because I have enough. So he urged him and he took it. Then Esau said, let us take our journey, let us go, and I'll go before you. But Jacob said to him, my Lord knows that the children are weak, and the flocks and the herds which are nursing are with me. And if the men should drive them hard one day, all the flock will die. Please let my Lord go on ahead before his servant. I will lead on slowly at a pace with the livestock that go before me, and the children are able to endure until I come to my Lord in Seir. And Esau said, now let me leave with you some of the people who are with me. But he said, what need is there? Let me find favor in the sight of my Lord. So Esau returned that day on his way to Seir. And Jacob journeyed to Sukkot, built himself a house, and made booths for his livestock, right? Sukkot, right? We've heard of that, right? The Feast of Sukkot, the Feast of Tabernacles, right? So there's this place called Sukkot, Tabernacles. And he built himself there a bait, a house. But he also built Sukkot. He built these booths for his livestock. So when we're celebrating the Feast of Booths, it's nothing glamorous, right? It's, some people had really great accommodations for Sukkot. I had just a basic tent. Therefore, the name of the place is called Sukkot. Then Jacob came safely to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, when he came from Padan Aram, and he pitched his tent before the city. And he bought the parcel of land which where he had pitched his tent from the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. Then he erected an altar there, and he called it El Elohei Israel, God, the God of Israel. Right, and that's where the first time he uses his own name in this. He now becomes known as Israel. All right. Now, this is a sad chapter, in my opinion. Now, Dinah, the daughter of Leah, whom she had borne to Jacob, went out to see the daughters of the land. And when Shechem, the son of Hamor, the Hivite, prince of the country, saw her, he took her and lay with her and violated her. Oh, well, that's not good. Well, all right. So Shechem, is a shoulder. Hamor is a donkey. So these are interesting names, right? Hey, donkey, right? But that's the name. He took her and lay with her and violated her. All right. Now, this is a tricky one, okay? Because rape is wrong. The question is, was he doing this in a evil, I'm just trying to use you kind of mindset? In my opinion, now again, my opinion, guys, so you can take it or leave it. But based on what comes next, it says his soul was strongly attracted to Dinah, the daughter of Jacob, and he loved the young woman and spoke kindly to the young woman. So, in my humble opinion, it doesn't sound like he was trying to, hurt her or something like that. All right. Clearly, this is, they got together. There were a lot of hormones raging, and bada boom, bada bing. It's happened. Clearly, this was not supposed to happen, right? That she was supposed to get the blessing of her father. Her father's supposed to say, okay, there's supposed to be some kind of arrangement, some dowry of sorts, and there you go. All right. But that didn't happen. All right. So that did not happen. Now, the law is later going to provide for this. They're going to say, okay, if this thing happens, then guess what? They get to be married. All right. And he can't divorce her. He gets to have her if the daughter wants him. Right. So there was nothing that was that this could not happen. Right. This in fact could happen according to the law, this scenario. But we're going to see how it plays out, which is, of course, rather unfortunate. So Shechem spoke to his father Hamor, saying, "Get me this young woman as a wife." And Jacob heard that he had defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now his sons were with his livestock in the field, so Jacob held his peace until they came. Then Hamor, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him. And the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved and very angry, because he had done a disgraceful thing in Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing which ought not to be done. But Hamor spoke with them, saying, "The soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife." Right? So again, this wasn't something where, you might see on late night TV where some guy is in the park and he's just stalking women and he's just trying to attack them and to do them harm. All right. And just to use them, for whatever few minutes sexually and be gone and leave them destitute. That's not the same thing. So I just kind of have the right picture in your mind, whether whatever you think about the situation, just kind of have that in your mind. He loves her. He wants to be with her. He wants to marry her, etc. And make marriages with us. Give your daughters to us and take our daughters to yourselves. So you shall dwell with us and the land shall be before you. Dwell and trade in it and acquire possessions for yourselves in it. Then Shechem said to her father and her brothers, "Let me find favor in your eyes, and whatever you say to me, I will give. Ask me ever so much dowry and gift, and I will give according to what you say to me, but give me the young woman as a wife." So he's in this thing, right? I'll do whatever it takes. I love her. I think she's amazing. I want to be with her. But the sons of Jacob answered Shechem and Hamor's father and spoke deceitfully. Now that's interesting. Where might they get this idea of deception from? Wait a second. It's coming to me. I'm searching my database. Oh, let's see. Oh, yes, it was their father who had, of course, deceived Laban to some extent. And of course, they heard the story about how he had deceived his father. And of course, Laban wasn't such a stand-up guy either. And, it's kind of been running in the family. Sad, isn't it? Right? And this is why we want to do righteously, so our kids can see at least a decent vantage of what ought to be and what could be. But sadly, we don't always do that. And they said to him, we cannot do this thing to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. They've got this plan. We're going to do something here. But on this condition, we will consent to you. If you'll become as we are, if every male of you is circumcised, then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we'll become one people. But if you will not heed us and be circumcised, then we will take our daughter and be gone. And their words pleased Hamor and Shechem, Hamor's son. Now, notice here. So the young man did not delay to do the thing because he delighted in Jacob's daughter. Now, the word here, delight, chafetz. Yeah? So hepzibah, you ever heard of that, right? This is where my delight is in her, right? We see this word that God delights in us. He delights in Jerusalem. He delights in Israel, right? There's a word there, hepzibah. His delight is in her. My hepsi, right? My delight is in her. That's in the book of Isaiah. That's the same word. He has the same incredible enthusiasm and joy and right? He really is excited about her, right? So again, this is why I think that this wasn't some, devious thing on the part of Shechem, and he was just trying to use her and dump her and all this different stuff that we so often hear about in our news cycles, which is really terrible. Or maybe we see on late night TV or, unsolved crimes, right? I don't think that's the scenario, right? But their society was much more reserved, shall I say, to put it very, very nicely, than ours is, right? Ours is rather loose and many of our morals, and so the idea that people would have relations outside of this bond of marriage, that was absolutely unthinkable. And of course, today people don't think too much of it. So the young man did not delay to do the thing, right? And it says he was more honorable than all the household of his father. That's interesting, isn't it? Now, let me remind you what he just did. He took a knife, right? And he cut off his foreskin. That's kind of a sensitive area, right? Yeah, it's like really sensitive, right? But he was so committed to Dinah that he wanted to do this. Now, I've heard other people preach on this, and they're like, well, you know what? What those guys in Shechem got, they had it coming, right? They all deserve to die. I disagree with that. I think what we're about to see is, well, it says that it was deceptive, and I think it was wrong. I don't think God was happy at all that that the sons of Jacob went and killed the men of Shechem. I think that was a bad thing to do. And Hamor and Shechem, his son, came to the gate of their city and spoke with the men of their city, saying, these men are at peace with us, right? So he's already done it, and now he's going to go and tell everybody else what they need to do. Therefore, let them dwell in the land and trade in it, for indeed the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters to us as wives, and let us give them our daughters. Only on this condition will the men consent to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among us is circumcised as they are circumcised. What's interesting is the sons of Jacob were circumcised physically, but where were their hearts? Well, we're going to see their hearts. We're going to see the true condition of their hearts in just a moment. And when they're willing to kill their own brother, but then, well, let's not kill him. Okay, they sell him into slavery. We're going to see the real condition of their hearts. And I think this is a major part of the argument that Paul is getting at in the book of Romans and other places, that, hey, circumcision all by itself means diddly squat. It doesn't mean anything. There has to be a circumcision of the heart. That is what God is looking at. Circumcision of the flesh is, well, there's some value in that. I just said diddly squat, right? But there's only value in it because God said to do it. But if you've done that and your heart is not right with God, then it's diddly squat. Okay. So what happens that is people start putting the cart before the horse. And that's where I think we get into these big debates about the value of circumcision. It's got to be the horse before the cart, right? You can't switch them around. You put the cart first and then the horse, it doesn't work. The horse cannot push that wagon. He's got to pull the wagon. And that's what we have here, that the circumcision of heart must absolutely and always precede the circumcision of the flesh. If you only have the circumcision of the flesh and you don't have the circumcision of the heart, it means nothing. And that's what Paul's really getting at in his epistles. So here, I think these men acted rather honorably, right? And all who went out of the gate of his city heeded Hamor and Shechem, his son. Every male was circumcised, all who went out of the gate of his city, right? So everybody's like, okay, we'll do it. We honor you guys. You think it's a good deal. We'll do it. There's a real cost in this, okay? So if you haven't thought about this, you haven't thought this through, gentlemen, just, well, don't do anything stupid, but in your mind, imagine a knife and then, cutting. Okay. Like that's what they had to do, right? So they were very much committed to this pact that they were making with Jacob and his sons. Now it came to pass on the third day when they were in pain that two of the sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came boldly upon the city and killed all the males. Oh, boldly. When these guys can't even get up because they're in so much pain, right? By that third day, there's inflammation, there's swelling, there's probably some fever going along with it, right? Because they didn't have antibiotics and all this different stuff. They're going to get through it, but man, it was really hurting. Okay. And they didn't have ice packs, right? They didn't have a bag of peas that they could just go get from the freezer and kind of numb the pain. No, they just had to live with it, right? So these guys just, they're in a tremendous amount of pain. And these two guys come boldly, like, oh, we're going to show them a thing or two. But you know what? This isn't even a fair fight. It's not even a fight. You're just going and you're murdering people. That's all you're doing. You're murdering people, Simeon and Levi. You're murdering people, right? It's not like went to war and you had to do something. No. And they killed Hamor and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword. It took Dinah from Shechem's house and went out. Oh, I think that is so tragic. And it really kind of grinds on me when I hear pastors and teachers who are saying, oh, this was a good thing. No, it wasn't. No, it wasn't. It was a bad thing that they did. It was evil. It was deceptive. It was just plain wrong. I don't know how to put that nicely. It was very, very wrong what they did. And, well, it was, I can't say more. It was just super bad. The sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because their sister had been defiled. That does not, again, it does not justify it. And they made a deal, right? What does God want us to do? Let our yes be yes and our no be no. Let's not deceive one another. Let's not go out and kill each other. That's not our place. They had no right to do this. And if you're one of the pastors who's maybe taught that way and you happen to be listening right now, I encourage you, exhort you to rethink your position on this particular passage, right? The good thing about the Bible is it's given us the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's given us all the dirty laundry. And this is pretty dirty laundry right here. This is a real big stain on the family. And Jacob is not too happy either. They took their sheep, their oxen, and their donkeys, what was in the city and what was in the field, and all their wealth, all their little ones, their wives, they took captive, and they plundered even all that was in the houses. Wow. Yeah. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, you have troubled me by making me obnoxious among the inhabitants of the land, among the Canaanites and Perizzites. And since I am few in number, they will gather themselves together against me and kill me. I shall be destroyed, my whole household and I. Now, I think it's really sad that Jacob doesn't speak harsher to his sons or really penalize them, punish them for what they've done, because it's so heinous of a crime that they've committed. But, he's like, well, I'm just concerned about me. I'm going to die now because you made me look bad. I would suggest it went far further. I don't know exactly what he should have done, but it wasn't too much of a tongue lashing that he gave them. It seems pretty mild. But they said, should he treat our sister like a harlot? Come on, guys. It's time to grow up. Okay. Now, again, the way that Shechem first got together with Dinah, that was wrong. We agree. But he did his best to make amends and to make it right. And again, we're going to see later in the Torah that if this scenario happens, that if a young man comes upon a young woman, right, and this happens, there's a solution for it. It's called marriage, right? And they're going to be together, right? So God is, he's like, okay, that wasn't great, but here's what you need to do. And it's all fixed, right? There's no more problem. It's been resolved. But these guys took matters into their own hands. Sadly. Then God said to Jacob, arise and go to Beit El and dwell there and make an altar there to God who appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau, your brother. And Jacob said to his household and all who were with him, put away the foreign gods that are among you, purify yourselves and change your garments. Then let us arise and go up to Beit El, and I'll make an altar there to God who answered me in the day of my distress and has been with me in the way which I have gone. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods. Wait a second. Foreign gods? What are foreign gods doing in his household? I thought he was the, let's see, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. That's right. And yet there are foreign gods in his household? Yeah. Here you have a man of God. By definition, this is, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, right? And in Jacob's house are foreign gods. Oh my. It is so easy to put people up on pedestals, right? Whether you see them on TV or here on YouTube, or you see, you hear people on the radio, maybe you read their book, whatever it may be, right? Maybe it's nobody who is world famous or anything like that, but it's just somebody that you really look up to. This is such a man of God, right? He taught me so many things. And you know what? Maybe that person did teach you a bunch of stuff, but there can still be foreign gods in that household. And probably, if we're honest, most of us will find that we have foreign gods in our household. Now, maybe it may not be your physical dwelling, your abode, your house, at whatever address, but it could be this abode, right? It's in this place called the heart that I have foreign gods. And so we always need to be cognizant that we need to put away those foreign gods. And here's the great thing about the God that we serve, right? He's no idiot. He knows what we're doing. And he already knows the foreign gods that we have. And so he's not going to sit there and just castigate us forever until we finally learn our lessons. What he wants us to do is say, you know what? I just realized I have foreign gods in my life. I have anything that's taking a higher rank than my relationship with God. What's the solution? Confess it, stop doing it, right? And then turn away from it. That's it, right? And so this is what they did. So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods which were in their hands and the earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree, which was by Shechem. Now, it's going to be interesting as we go through scripture. We're going to see that again in the book of Judges, right? That there seems to be a lot of idolatry that's happening at this place, right? So it's kind of interesting. So these are kind of know nothing kind of little gods, but then again, on the other hand, they're actually entities that were behind these little figurines, and they were very real entities, even though the pieces of wood were nothing, but the gods that they represented were very much something. And so you got to put them away. And so once you've done that, then you're ready to go have an encounter with God. You first got to put away those foreign gods. And you know what? That's the hard thing to do, because you have to admit, oh man, I've been holding these foreign gods in my life. And we say, well, what are other people going to say, right? What if they find out? Well, they might say, you know what? Yeah, me too. I've had foreign gods, right? And it's a very convicting message. So it's hard. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were all around them, and they did not pursue the sons of Jacob. So Jacob came to Luz, that is Beit El, which is in the land of Canaan, he and all the peoples who were with him. And he built an altar there and called the place El Beit El, so the God of the house of God. Remember, first time he came here, he's like, whoa, there's something special about this place. And he discovered it was actually some kind of a connection between heaven and earth. This is where he saw the ladder, Jacob's ladder. And Jesus said that you're going to see the angels ascending and descending on the Son of Man, right? So Jesus was saying, I am the ladder. I am the connection point between heaven and earth. I'm it. All right. And so he builds this because there God appeared to him when he fled from the face of his brother. Now, Deborah, Rebekah's nurse, died, and she was buried below Beit El under the terebinth tree. So the name of it was called Alon Bahut, right? So Alon is an oak. Bahut is of crying, okay, or mourning, crying. So the oak of crying, basically. Then God appeared to Jacob again, and when he came from Padan Aram and blessed him, and God said to him, "Your name is Jacob. Your name shall not be called Jacob anymore." So remember, I gave you that name change. You're supposed to be Israel, but you're still deceiving, right? There's still deception happening. What your sons did, massive deception. That was not good. All right, so it's time to own your name. So he called his name Israel. Also, God said to him, "I am God Almighty." All right, so here is El Shaddai. I am God Almighty. Be fruitful and multiply. A nation and a company of nations shall proceed from you, and kings shall come from your body. The land which I gave to Abraham and Isaac, I give to you, and your descendants after you, I give this land. Then God went up from him in the place where he talked with him. So Jacob set up a pillar in the place where he talked with him, a pillar of stone, and he poured a drink offering on it, and he poured oil on it. And Jacob called the name of the place where God spoke with him, Beit El. Then they journeyed from Beit El, and when there was but a little distance to go to Ephrat, Rachel labored in childbirth, and she had hard labor. Now it came to pass when she was in hard labor that the midwife said to her, "Do not fear, you will have this son also." And so it was, as her soul was departing, for she died, that she called his name Ben-Oni, the son of distress, okay, or agony there, or what's another way to put it? Sorrow. That's probably the better, yeah. Son of sorrow, son of my sorrow. What kind of name would that be? Ben-Oni, son of my sorrow, come here. It seems like these names kind of shape what the person that you're going to become, right? But his father called him Ben-Yamin, right? He's going to be the son of my right hand, Vinyamin, there. So he got an upgrade in his name. You know, that's interesting, right? So she wanted to name this child son of sorrow, but no, God says, or Jacob says, no, you're going to have a different name because you're going to have a different perspective and outlook. And look, I was called Jacob, deceiver, and then I got renamed to wrestles with God, right? I got this new name, and I'm going to give you a new name. Your name isn't going to be Ben-Oni, but it's going to be Binyamin. So Rachel died and was buried on the way to Ephrat, that is Bethlehem. And Jacob set a pillar on a grave, which is the pillar of Rachel's grave to this day. Then Israel journeyed and pitched his tent beyond the tower of Edo. And it happened when Israel dwelt in the land that Reuben went and lay with Bilhah, his father's concubine, and Israel heard about it. Whoa, what's going on now? Okay, I'll tell you, it's just one drama after another. Well, basically what Reuben is trying to say is, hey, I just took my father's concubine, and what does that make me? Makes me the top dog, the alpha male. You know, I'm the guy that you need to look to now. I'm now the ruler. I'm the patriarch. That's what he was doing. Remember when David fled from Absalom, that Absalom tried to do that very thing to, in a sense, desecrate his harem, his concubines, and say, look, these are now mine. And so now I'm the rightful king. That's essentially what Reuben was trying to say. Now, this is going to cost Reuben, right? As we go on and Jacob's handing out blessings at the end of all this, Reuben's isn't going to be very good, right? So yeah, it didn't work out, Reuben. Again, Reuben was trying to take matters in his own hands. He's probably thinking, you know what? My dad's old. I'm young and spry, but I'm the head of this clan now. So I really should be the patriarch. And I'm going to take matters into my own hands. But by doing that, he disqualified himself. Sadly, he disqualified himself. And really, Reuben, we really don't hear anything about the tribe of Reuben. I mean, they're still there, but they're of no consequence, right? They're really of no consequence. And so we can see that Reuben is going to be passed over. And then when it comes to, you know, who should be next in line, well, it could be Joseph, but Joseph is going to be skipped as well. There's another reason for that. Then we go back to the sons of Leah, the other sons of Jacob, let's say. So then you have Simeon and Levi. They're going to be disqualified as well because of what they did in Shechem. And eventually, the right of king is going to go to who? It's going to go to Judah, right? And of course, that's the Jews, right? The Yehudim, and the royal lineage comes from their line, and not from these other guys. But it could have been had they not taken matters into their own hands. Now, the sons of Jacob were 12. The sons of Leah were Reuben, Jacob's firstborn, and Simeon, Levi, Judah, Issachar, and Zebulun. The sons of Rachel were Joseph and Benjamin. The sons of Bilhah, Rachel's maidservant, were Dan and Naphtali. And the sons of Zilpah, Leah's maidservant, were Gad and Asher. These were the sons of Jacob who were born to him in Padan Aram. Then Jacob came to his father Isaac at Mamre, or Kiryat Arba, that is Hebron, where Abraham and Isaac had dwelt. Now the days of Isaac were 180 years. Now we don't hear anything about Jacob's mother, right? So another sad testimony, because she was trying to force God's hand. She lost her son that day, right? She's like, son, do this and it's going to be great. But she never saw him again. Tragic story, right? Tragic story. And really, he doesn't get to see his dad too much, except here at the very end. Now, the days of Isaac were 180 years. So Isaac breathed his last and died, and was gathered to his people, being old and full of days. And his sons Esau and Jacob buried him. Wow. Well, moral of the story, don't get ahead of God. God has all kinds of great things in store for us if we would but trust him. So trust him, right? Stop stressing out. Stop getting ahead of him. Stop trying to do things in your own strength, in your own wisdom. Speaking to myself here, right? And wait upon him. See the salvation of the Lord. And having done all to stand, do what? Stand therefore. Stand therefore. And when you do that, then you get to see God work in big, exciting, amazing ways. It's so much more fun. All right. Well, thank you guys. Again, so glad that you tuned in and joined us. Until next time, God bless you.